What if you discover that silence can scream louder than words? Dawn envelops the monastery in a light mist, like a hidden secret waiting for its moment. The sound of the bell announces the beginning of a new day, its echoes penetrating the heart of the valley, reminding of the grandeur and severity of customs. Every stone, every wall holds stories and unacknowledged conflicts within. Monastic figures slowly move in the courtyard, their faces hidden beneath hoods, but their gazes reveal an indescribable tension. The time for morning prayer approaches. The brothers gather in the refectory, each of them not just a monk but a bearer of inner struggle, their truth and faith. But beneath the calmness of the rituals lies an invisible world of competition and envy. If the walls could speak, they would sing of how difficult it is to remain faithful to one's ideals when whispers of contempt and mockery echo around. One of the monks standing apart feels the weight of his brother's gazes on him. Among them he seems like an outsider, but within his heart a storm rages, not of anger but of understanding that true respect does not come from the display of power but from humble integrity. His path to recognition will not be through rebellion but through quiet non-resistance, kindness, and harmony. The air hangs heavy with the aroma of freshly baked bread while distrust sparkles in the eyes of the monks. This breakfast is not merely a meal, it is a test of resilience. Each piece of bread serves as a reminder of devotion to the rules, of the importance of inner peace that often remains unseen from the outside. But what if the true strength lies precisely in this silent standoff? Silence again envelops the monastery, allowing each one to ask themselves, what is the price of inner righteousness in a world where many seek external validation? What if I told you that beneath this calmness lie real secrets? Time seems to have frozen, and at first glance everything appears to follow a familiar script. But do you know that behind this abyss of silence hides a true storm of emotions and experiences? Each of us carries within conflicts, layered and tangled like a ball of yarn. Imagine a quiet evening. The door creaks, and as you gaze into the darkness, you realize that no moment is ever random. Guessing another's thoughts can be more challenging than climbing Everest unprepared. Yet it is in the shadows of the mundane that the most significant events of our lives occur. What if, at this very moment, a battle of desires and fears is raging in your mind? We often hide our true feelings like treasures at the bottom of the ocean. The outside world is unaware of the sorrows and joys we experience in solitude. This silence is not just the absence of sound. It is a delicate thread of reality that can easily be torn. Pause for a moment and reflect. What does this sound vacuum around you conceal? Perhaps it is precisely what could change everything. Your story begins here. Do you know that your habitual routines can consume your entire life? In this strict schedule, where every moment is governed by rules, habits become your only salvation, but at the same time, a prison. Prayer, meals, work, everything is scheduled to the minute, and in this chaotic rhythm, freedom disappears. Imagine waking up early in the morning, and at that moment a strict law comes into effect. No extra minutes. Every morning begins with a prayer, followed by breakfast, strictly time-limited. No extra words, no deviations from the plan. Using every minute is not just a rule, it's a mental code that integrates you into the system, depriving you of the right to choose. Everyone here is a part of the mechanism, just a small cog, important but completely unfree. If you were to draw a timeline from beginning to end, you would see how it fills with strict time frames. You can forget about spontaneous decisions or choosing based on impulse. Every step is predetermined, and the desire to break free turns out to be just a faint whisper within you. And so work goes on. clearly regulated, accounting for every second. Silently, you complete tasks because talking is unnecessary, yet your mind is full of other ideas, ideas for which there is no place here. You work like a machine, and inside you pressure builds up. The desire to break the rules becomes stronger. Traditions and rules form an impenetrable wall behind which there is no life. Everyone knows what it's like to sacrifice their desires for compliance with the rules for the approval of others. But deep down, you understand. Life is not a list of orders, and yet everyone here seems to think that breaking these rules means destroying the very foundation of their existence. The only question is how long you can remain in this rigid world before the desire to escape and feel true freedom becomes insurmountable. Are you ready to see how one small violation can turn into a disaster? In our world, everything has its place and everyone knows their role. This implicit hierarchy, like a millennia-old building, stands on a solid foundation where respect is the main material. Imagine you are in a company where every step is precious. You ignore the rules and suddenly you are seen as an outcast. Remember that moment when you felt out of place, when everyone around seemed to turn their backs. Think of those embarrassed glances. Life in such an environment resembles a chess game. Every move is calculated, every word weighed. In this strict game, respect is not just a value, it is a necessity of life. It creates an atmosphere of trust that many dream of. Without it, the world begins to crack at the seams. It is like a house without a foundation that will eventually collapse. Consider what happens when someone decides to break the established order. They can lose everything, jobs, friends, even their place in society. That is why it is so important to understand what the rules are and why they exist. These are not just words, this is life. A life where respect is not sympathy but survival. We must remember that by exploring boundaries we can become their victims. Understanding this hierarchy is key to your success and harmony in the team. The question is, are you ready to follow these rules? Have you ever wondered what price one might pay for true peace? A young monk, quietly stepping upon the ancient stone stairs, enters the bright refectory of the monastery, his steps resounding in the silence like an echo of times long past. His eyes, full of sincerity and hope, reflect not only light but also the shadows of his past. He has come here, leaving behind a world of complete bustle and chaos, where the pursuit of success is dictated by the opinions of others. But the path to inner peace has proven to be difficult. With each step through this sacred place, he feels the weight of regrets and missed opportunities gradually lifting. Recalling how he once endlessly sought external achievements, he realizes that true strength lies not in possession but in letting go. Every moment here is a great cleansing, an opportunity to rewrite his fate, like an artist taking a brush in hand to start on a blank canvas. What if I told you that his true aim was not only the search for solitude, but also the desire to share his path with all who, like him, once sought answers to the questions of life? This story begins here, and it is filled with hope, love, and a genuine search. Each of us can feel that touch to the heart that awakens within us a readiness for change. What if I told you that rules exist not only to be followed? Every day is a new step into a world where every gesture, every word can provoke a cold glance from colleagues. That's how my journey began. Like most, I naively believed I lived in a world of laws and norms where everything was clearly defined. But then, during one of my routine studies of the global regulations in our organization, I accidentally bumped into a cheerful couple discussing the internal rules. That evening in the locker room, I went through a ritual that had become my norm. I warmed up and felt freer than ever. At that moment, an unusual idea struck me. Could my internal constraints really be blurred by witty comments? As if by intuition, I made a clever joke about the number of unnecessary regulations that weigh us down. An awkward silence hung in the air, and then the first cold glance from the seniors came. It felt like a blow to the heart. A vibration of doubt began to grow within me. Had I truly crossed established boundaries? Journalists, in whispers of how courage sometimes walks hand in hand with loneliness, seemed to echo their misguided words to me that evening. I could not believe what I saw in my colleagues' eyes. Suddenly I realized that behind those glances lay not just anger, but fear. Fear for stability, for the familiar order of things. And here it was, the internal conflict, to follow the laws or to allow myself to be free. It was just the first glance, but it imprinted deeply in my memory as a warning that sometimes courage can be unacceptable. At that moment, each of us witnessed the contradiction. How a sharp joke can evoke such a storm of emotions. And in this obscurantism where the ray of truth sparkles on the horizon, is it worth overshadowing oneself for added freedom if loneliness hides behind it? What if I told you that help can come from where it is least expected? As the evening mist envelops him, our hero, passing by an old monastery, suddenly catches a faint sigh. For a brief moment he feels a wave of caution. This somber corner does not inspire trust. But curiosity and an inner light urge him to step closer as he notices an old monk bent over a tangled string of prayer beads, his hands trembling and his eyes filled with confusion. The hero cannot look away from this weary face. Its expression tells a story of loneliness and pain that starkly contrasts with the chill of the surrounding atmosphere. Approaching, he asks, "Is everything all right?" For a moment the monk lifts his gaze, and in that moment their eyes meet. Like two ships in a stormy sea, they find each other in the dark abyss of solitude. "No one comes," the monk unexpectedly replies, his voice akin to the whisper of a dying wind. "Everyone has left, no one will return." The hero's heart tightens. In this simple acknowledgement, he feels the weight of alienation pressing against the walls of the monastery. A strange transformation occurs within his soul. He begins to understand that even in the darkest corners, light can be found. He cannot simply leave the old man alone, like a forgotten book on a dusty shelf. A desire arises within him to do something, even if it is just a word or a gentle act of kindness. This long conversation with the monk becomes not only an attempt to help another, but also an inner revelation. The light he brings, the warmth of human connection, suddenly begins to illuminate his own path. "May I help you with something?" he pronounces, and in that moment, as if time has paused, the monk grows silent. One moment, one gesture, one question leads to a change in everything. In this simple act lies a great power, capable of breaking the chains of alienation and warming even the coldest hearts. What if I told you that sometimes kindness is not what it seems? Often when we see a person smiling and reaching out to help, there is a feeling that something else might be hidden behind that smile. Why does kindness evoke suspicion? Perhaps we live in a world where everyone is taught to be on guard, where a simple act of friendliness is perceived as a weakness. Imagine, you walk into a cafe, and the barista with a warm smile offers you a discount. What do you feel in the first moment? Joy? Gratitude? Or is there a slight confusion knowing that nothing is ever free? It seems paradoxical, but within each of us lives a little detective ready to decode any gesture, especially if it's too good to be true. A story once told me about a man who spent his life doing good, helping anyone in need. People revered him, but at some point rumors began. Why does he help all the time? What does he gain from it? And suddenly the one who was a symbol of kindness became a subject of discussion and distrust. Interesting, isn't it? We must ask ourselves, Is kindness truly just an act of mercy, or is there a hidden subtext to it? Could it also be a manifestation of our weaknesses, fears, or perhaps even manipulation? It's time to remember that behind kindness, even the most sincere, often lies an inner contradiction. Each of us can become both a hero and an antagonist in this story if we do not recognize our true intentions and fears. Kindness can be a new battlefield. Who knows what your fate was when you decided to do something good? Are you ready to see how hidden pressure can destroy even the strongest relationships? Gathered around the table, a hearty dinner, the evening igniting outside. The heroes, laughing, discuss the latest news, but every word carries a hint of provocation. One of them, seemingly impassive, suddenly asks, "Are you done working on your project, or are you stuck in your dreams again?" Laughter erupts, but an unpleasant aftertaste hangs in the air. The smile on the protagonist's face fades, and an internal monologue begins to torment him. Why can't I just enjoy dinner? Why does this turn into a verbal sparring ring? His wife winks, adding subtly, "Don't worry, everyone goes through tough times. The main thing is not to lose hope." Her voice sounds encouraging, but beneath it lurks a fleeting jab. What if you don't have the strength for that? The conversation shifts to another topic, but every new word seems to hit the mark. "You haven't forgotten how to do this, have you?" Others laugh, but only the protagonist feels the weight of each sentence pressing down on his shoulders like a heavy burden that drains his confidence. He tries not to notice, or maybe just doesn't want to see. But inside, a storm of questions brews. Why do I keep tolerating this? How can I be so blind to these hints? It's probably just a game of words, but everyone laughs except him. Meanwhile, a delicious dish smokes on the table, while the atmosphere fills with jabs of cunning and hidden competition, piling an unbearable burden beneath the hero's feet. The intrigue grows, and when another joke sounds at the table, the hero attempts to smile, but his eyes are full of anxiety. What secrets lie behind that smile? This time, a new laughter rings at the table, but the host speaks in raised tones. "And you still don't know how to present your project properly? Don't ask. I'll explain it to you later." Some find this funny, but for the hero, it marks the beginning of the end. Each jab, like the previous one, leaves a scar. He has a metaphor inside now, as if he is battling an invisible enemy, where every word is a ticking time bomb. The hero decides to take a pause, and suddenly he feels the realization. He is not alone in these words, but how many are hidden behind the mask of laughter? What if I told you that your silences can speak louder than words? I stand at a crossroads where every thought begins to pierce me like lightning. What to say? Respond and face the truth, or let silence envelop me like a warm blanket? Not long ago, I made a decision that turned into a real trial for my soul. Every time I think about it, my heart stops with excitement. I remember finding an old photograph. We were happy, carefree. The gaze, full of hope and bright expectations, now feels the burden of choice. Does that moment of happiness repeat itself, or has it gone forever? Inside, words swirl like lost in a whirlwind, unable to find an exit. My mind argues with my heart. What if I open this wound? If words tear apart the only thing that remains? Is there courage in acknowledging one's feelings? Or conversely, is it weakness? I recalled telling myself, "Don't be afraid, move forward." But now that inner voice has turned into doubt, a frightening whisper that makes me wander uncertainly among my own thoughts. What is it like to be vulnerable even for a moment? To allow the inner conflict to break free and be seen? I closed my eyes, imagining that I speak. I feel each peak of emotion burning in my chest. Why hide from myself? But fear is a heavy chain. Can silence protect me from this hurricane of feelings, or will it become my tombstone? What if I can open my soul, take the risk in search of truth? I took a deep breath, listening to my inner voice. Does it really have the right to decide for me? What if I told you that among us lives a person who cannot see the light even in the heart of the monastery? He is here, and his story may astonish you. In our monastery there is a brother whom everyone avoids. No one wants to talk to him, not even to exchange greetings. All who have dealt with him speak of him as if he were cursed. But in reality he is not evil. He is simply different. He is called an outcast. Everyone knows that he broke the unwritten rules, and for this he was rejected by all. Once he was one of those who inspired others. His wisdom and profound truths gathered crowds of brothers around him. But one day he uttered words that shocked everyone. Why should we follow someone else's path if our own path can lead us to the truth? The elders did not like this, and from that moment on he became an outcast. Imagine what it is like to sit in the cloister among walls filled with silence, translating every gaze to yourself, but not with hope, only with dread. He became a living example of what happens when you break the unwritten rules. He lost everything: respect, friendship, and perhaps faith in himself. Every evening he sits by the window and looks at the dark forests, as if searching for solace in their depths. But within him a quiet bell tolls, a reminder that the choice was made and the consequences have become his constant companions. He has learned to live with loneliness, has learned to be a shadow among the brothers who once were his friends. And what if each of us took a step towards him? Perhaps this story would tell us how important it is to understand one another, how dangerous it is to follow customs without our own reflections. Wisdom is often hidden where we least expect to find it. Thus, his life is not just a story of an outcast. It is a warning about the consequences when we forget that behind each of us may lie a true story, full of painful truths. What if I tell you that respect can be earned by being true to yourself? Imagine you are faced with a serious choice: to conform to the expectations of those around you, or to follow your own path despite the pressure. How many times have you heard phrases like, "To be successful, you need to bend to the system"? But is that really the case? Let's remember what it feels like to wear masks every day and at the end of the day feel empty. Does it sound familiar? We often think that to achieve our goals, we not only need to work hard, but also to sacrifice our inner values. What if I tell you that true strength lies in the ability to be true to yourself? Imagine how the atmosphere changes when a person, despite all temptations and pressures, says, "No, I will choose the path that is close to me." It's difficult, isn't it? And here lies the main question: can respect be earned without breaking oneself? This dilemma confronts each of us. What if success can indeed be built on sincerity and loyalty to oneself? Take a moment to reflect on how much you are willing to sacrifice your principles in the pursuit of success. Your thoughts and feelings are your true strength. No matter what your path may be, remember, staying true to yourself is not just a choice, it is courage. What if your heart sings in silence while doubts torment your mind? In the dim light of the cell, the hero froze behind a wooden table, eyes full of uncertainty fixed on the candle flame that flickered like his own thoughts. Every shimmering light seemed to ignite new doubts within him, scorching his soul. The wind outside howled and swayed, echoing his inner turmoil. He lowers his head, and the words of prayer slip from his lips. But instead of confidence, they turn into a whisper, intertwining with the silence. What is he searching for? An answer, support, or just comfort? Isn't it always like this? In silence, fears catch up, philosophical musings about who he is and where he is going. He recalls how many times he has fallen and each time risen to his knees, but what drove him down this path? As if in response to his thoughts, the candle flickers more intensely, and at that moment he remembers how often he has doubted everything. An inner voice whispers, "What if you are wrong even now?" For a moment it seems to him that the fire of the candle dances to the rhythm of his heart, and he struggles with the desire for that flame to extinguish as he cannot allow himself to be disappointed again. Why do you keep going? He asks himself, hiding deep within his soul a fear of the future. Outside, the whole world appeared cold and relentless, while inside him swirled a vortex of unwanted thoughts. He closes his eyes and tries to give form to his prayer. But no one knows what is happening in his heart. No one sees the depths of his struggle. It shines through every word, every note born from pain. And while silence embraces him, he realizes that only through the prism of doubts can he find himself. And only there, in that darkness, in the shadow of his fears, does his true strength grow. Are you ready to learn the truth about surviving in this strict monastic world? Do you think everything here is under tight control and every rule protects peace and order? Let me dispel that myth. Other monks are whispering around you, and their eyes are full of secrets they dare not reveal. Every step, every choice here is a game where not only your faith but also your life is at stake. When night falls and the stars begin to twinkle in the sky, look into the eyes of your brothers. What are they hiding? Shadows suggest that not everything is so serene in this sacred place. They say to break through the system, sometimes you have to violate established rules. Do you have the courage for that? Imagine one story. A senior monk who crossed the boundaries of what is permissible and discovered incredible abilities to survive among harsh realities. He overcame envy and discontent by embracing conflict, and now his name is whispered with reverence, and his secrets are passed from mouth to mouth. Each of you stands at a crossroads, to blindly follow instructions or to step into the unknown, unraveling the mysteries that surround you. Remember, the choice is yours. What fate will you choose in a world where only the most determined can unlock true power? Your journey begins here and now. What if you could stop the cycle of evil with just one decision? In a world where evil lurks at every turn, where conflicts ignite like wildfire, our hero, burdened by negativity and struggle, suddenly realizes there is a way out. And it is not through retaliatory aggression, but through its complete opposite. He decides not to respond to evil with evil, but to choose silence and kind deeds, like an oasis in a desert of hatred. Every day, passing by the humiliated, he spices his thoughts with inspiration. Can one really walk by when it is so easy to extend a helping hand? One day, noticing a teenager falling prey to mockery, he approaches and says, "Don't pay attention, you deserve better." This simple gesture, like a sparrow in the spring sky, begins to change the atmosphere. He starts leaving notes with kind words in public places like a messenger of hope. And suddenly, it begins to work. People who witness his actions begin to follow his example. As a result, his silent fight against cruelty becomes a powerful movement, uplifting everyone around. Now he faces a choice: to continue on the path of kindness or to return to the struggle for justice, not realizing that the real fight is already taking place but on another field. This field of goodness and understanding, where each of his actions, each kind word, becomes a weapon more powerful than any spear. He realizes silence is not weakness but protest. Silence is not pessimism but an opportunity to listen. He becomes a living example of how losing can mean winning. Why participate in a game where everyone loses? Instead, he chooses the path to light, creating an alternative that many never even considered. Can he inspire others on this path? Each of his steps is a new level in the game where the world becomes a little better thanks to small acts of kindness. And suddenly, this story becomes not only his but also ours. Are you ready to learn how actions define our true essence? When we take on the heaviest tasks, we are not just demonstrating strength, we are creating meaning. Imagine morning light slowly filling the kitchen as the hero, with a focused gaze, tidies up. Water drips across the floor, reflecting a melting moment of serenity, and every buzzing sound of the mop becomes part of his extraordinary symphony. He does not complain, does not seek an excuse to retreat. He simply acts. Transitioning to the garden, he, like an artist, gathers ripe apples from the branches. The sun shines in his face, and each bite of this vibrant fruit becomes a testament to the labor invested in his harvest. Hard work requires effort, but this is how his character is formed. Every movement carries meaning, every drop of sweat, determination. In this moment he realizes deeds are not merely words, but actions that create reality. When we take on responsibility, this is what bears fruit. We not only change the world around us, but also transform into a better reflection of ourselves. By rethinking our actions, we open doors to new possibilities. Every effort, every step, it is a brick in the construction of our destiny. What if I told you that it is such moments that shape our lives and who we will become tomorrow? Can you imagine how one simple gesture can change everything? It was getting dark, and the park was quiet, as if the world was frozen in anticipation of something good. I was walking down the path when I suddenly noticed an old monk leaning against a tree. Suddenly he lost his balance and fell to the ground, his cane sliding aside. At the moment I saw him falling, my heart raced. I hurried to him as if a train had just passed, and extending my hand, I helped him up. His eyes, full of wisdom and fatigue, met mine, and in them was gratitude that words could not express. "Thank you, young man," he said with a slight tremor in his voice. This simple phrase sounded like an acknowledgement. I didn't just help a person, I became a part of his story. Notice how sometimes we forget about the real values, about mutual aid, about humanity. In that moment when we reach out, we become not just witnesses to life, but participants in it. Each of us is capable of small deeds that can mean a lot to another. This moment not only confirmed that I could do good, but it also awakened in me the confidence that each of us has a role in this world. For a moment I realized how much hidden warmth and kindness await if we only pay closer attention to those around us. With every gesture, with every person we help up, we ourselves lift something within, filling life with greater meaning. And that monk, with his wise gaze, stayed in my memory not just as a random passerby, but as a little beacon reminding me of how important it is to support one another. So much truly depends on a simple act of kindness. What if I tell you that silence can speak more than 1,000 words? Do you feel it? The silence hangs in the air as if frozen second hands awaiting what is to come. This moment is not just a pause. It is an entire universe filled with expectations and uncertainties. I scan the space, listening to every rustle, desperately striving to break this silence. But here lies only silence, as if fate itself has frozen, leaving everyone in oppressive anticipation. What lies behind this silence? Will others notice its sharpness? Or will it go unnoticed, dissolving in the everyday bustle? Is this the end, or simply the beginning of something more grand? Intense attention, like beams of spotlights, catches every detail. A moment of realization arrives. Silence can be not just emptiness, but also a significant harbinger of change. Are we waiting for events that we do not even suspect? And is the greatest power hidden in that silence? We are here, our entire lives in this pause, in what is about to happen. And while we try to glance beyond the boundaries of this quietness, something unfolds that will soon turn everything upside down. Silence leaves us in anticipation of an answer, ready for any turn of events. But here's the question. Will we be able to hear it? Are you ready to learn the truth about how the world around us works? We all tend to think that justice restores itself. But what if I told you that you are naive? Right now there is tension in the office. Colleagues are whispering, pointing at me as the main culprit behind the missing products. Nervousness boils in my chest. I'm sure I have nothing to do with this, but my voice cracks when I try to explain my innocence. Injustice is growing like a snowball. I remember the day I brought fresh pastries for my colleagues, hoping to cheer them up. Now they all look at me as a traitor. Throwing accusing glances my way, they do not suspect that the true culprit is hiding somewhere among them in the shadows. I feel adrenaline boiling in my veins. Tears of hurt well up in my throat. This is an insult, and I cannot accept it. Why does no one hear me? It hurts so much when every word resonates in my heart like an echo in the empty bottom of a mine. And at that very moment when I am ready to give up, I recall the last conversation with an honest colleague who said, "Don't let the truth slip away. They are watching you." These words, like a cold shower, make me stand up again. I decide to fight, to seek evidence, to stir up dust, even if it means confronting the whole team. Reaching the climax of tension, I will do everything possible to prove my innocence. Yes, I will fight, not as a victim but as an advocate for my own interests. Ahead lies the decisive moment when people will understand who the real thief is, and that will mark the beginning of my personal transformation. What happens when all eyes are on you, and silence feels like a weight on your shoulders? An acute sensation when every word turns to stone, carrying only misunderstanding and judgment. It's hard not to lose patience when you have no chance to justify yourself. The food on the table grows cold. Only tense gazes surround you, words frozen in the air, their flow unable to break through the wall of distrust. Everyone feels it. The unbearable truth envelops all like a black veil, and each person knows how difficult it is to make a choice. The hero sits silently. His face is impenetrable. It seems he hears whispers behind his back. How dare he? What has he done? Only one emotion in their eyes: strength. He knows that at this moment silence speaks louder than words. His resilience is not based on ignorance or fear. He accepts the truth even though it is bitter. Every heartbeat feels like the strike of a hammer. So intense are the anticipation and judgment. Inside him a struggle takes place. He understands how easy it is to give in, how easy it is to let emotions take over. But he chooses to stand firm, like a cliff that fears neither waves nor wind. Are you ready to destroy everything that has been put into you? Time stops when the question feels more than rhetorical. He realizes that even in silence he can show who is unafraid to accept the challenge. And in those moments when all life is turned upside down, true strength lies not in words, but in the fact that silence can be more eloquent than a raging storm. It is a lesson that sometimes the ability to listen to silence becomes the most powerful impulse. It is important not to lose yourself when everything around collapses. What if I told you that true strength can be found in solitude? On the edge of a cliff, in the fog of his thoughts, he stood, feeling his heart racing. An invisible shadow seemed to haunt him, and the fear of being an outcast was heavy and suffocating. This darkness which seized his soul encouraged every step he took, whispering to him that he was unnecessary, that everyone had turned away and would never return. He sought support, wishing someone would simply say, "I'm here." But who could understand him if he couldn't even untangle his own thoughts? Silence kept his greatest secrets. It felt like he was sinking into an endless vacuum where there was no room for hope or light. Yet in this madness he suddenly remembered that every choice, every yes or no was his personal loyalty. It was him. He had created a world where it was inappropriate to step away from himself. Yes, it was frightening. Yes, the fear of rejection, the fear of misunderstanding. It all terrified him. However, when he turned to his inner pain, it began to fade like a red thread connecting him to his true essence. He started to realize that the true cost of loyalty to oneself is not in praise, but in accepting who he is, with all his flaws and fears. He was ready to choose himself despite what others thought. And this was the discovery of a strength he had not even suspected. And it taught him that every step we take is our personal victory, even if it seems tiny. Not everyone will understand this, but those who walk this path will find their freedom. Darkness will cease to frighten you when you learn not to tremble before it, but to meet it with an open heart. Know this: the most sincere journey is the path to loyalty to oneself. What if someone close to you knew a secret that could change your life for the better? This might just be the case. On the first day, when the brother once again treated the protagonist rudely, tossing him aside, the expressions on both men's faces conveyed, "You are not worth our attention." They joke and laugh, and while the protagonist mechanically plays a video on his smartphone, his heart grows increasingly weary from indifference. Days pass, and they continue to ignore him, although one of them seems to start noticing changes. The protagonist follows their successes, hears them discussing their plans, and the question arises: should he try to reach out again? But the brother responds coldly, brushing aside any signs of interest. "Why do we need your advice? We can handle it ourselves." But then comes a moment when one of the brothers, faced with a serious problem at work, acknowledges the inevitable. This isn't working. Something needs to change. Lacking an idea on how to proceed, he unwittingly turns to the protagonist, who seems to have always had the answers. At that moment, the protagonist feels hope returning. Day by day, the situation changes. Conversations begin with gossip about successes, playful jabs about, "This time you won't step out of your comfort zone." But then something significant happens. A brother, reflecting on his failures, starts to slowly ask the protagonist questions. And for the first time since they began avoiding him, he hears, "Hey, how did you deal with a similar problem?" A hand on the shoulder, support and approval. These simple gestures that were lacking begin to lift the veil of tension. The protagonist feels slightly bewildered but full of confidence. Now he is not just a spectator but a participant in this process. Genuine interest emerges, and explanations become not just a formality but an integral part of their shared story. Instead of ignoring and arrogance, an atmosphere of open dialogue prevails, and advice becomes a true treasure, the effects of which are noticeable. Now they are not just brothers, but a team, and although their disputes initially seemed irreconcilable, in the end, brotherhood flourishes. The changes are irreversible, and something new appears on their faces, confidence in themselves and the courage to step over their fears. What lies ahead? Successes and challenges, but now they are together, and that changes everything. What if I told you that the power of change lies in the most unexpected moments? On that day when bright rays broke through the clouds, people quietly began to gather around. A tense atmosphere hung in the air, as if the whole village knew that something important was about to happen. The elder monk, who had been in the shadows for so long, slowly climbed the steps of the temple. His presence always commanded respect, and today it was especially noticeable. People's gazes were fixed on him, and their hearts beat in unison, full of hope and anticipation. He gathered his strength, and as if breaking through a storm of stagnant opinions, proclaimed, I want you all to know that the truth is not always found where it is sought. His words etched themselves into the minds of the listeners, reminding them of the fragile thread between beauty and truth. The hero standing below felt a flame ignite within him. The monk, who had become his inspiration, was lifting him to new heights at that very moment. Wisdom comes to those who are not afraid to face their fears, continued the elder monk, and each word resonated like a spell. The people, once filled with doubt, began to whisper to one another. This moment became a turning point, a moment when heroism ceased to be private, and everyone realized they were no longer alone. Alongside the awakening within the heroes, the excitement reached its peak. The elder monk took a step back, and all eyes turned to the hero, as if he had found himself at a traffic light that had just turned green. Do you hear it? It's the sound of your own dreams demanding to be fulfilled. The monk's words pierced the air, and in that instant everyone understood they were on the brink of change. There were numerous whispers and exclamations. It was a time when ordinary people could become heroes, when old rules ceased to apply. Like a mighty river, hope flowed through the bodies of the people, filling them with determination. The elder monk became their symbol, their beacon in the dark, and now everything would change. Have you ever wondered what it's like to receive recognition from people you once found it hard to get along with? When the last lines of your former story have already been written, and a completely new chapter lies ahead, and suddenly you notice that the way those around you look at you begins to change. Before you stands your entire team, those very brothers who once looked at you with disdain. Their eyes are filled with wonder, as if they are discovering a new reality. This is not just respect. It is the acknowledgement of your inner strength, which, like a bright star, ignited when you decided to stand up for your beliefs. Some of them avert their gaze, ashamed of their previous words, of the doubts they held about you. It's a moment when all the support finally becomes real and tangible. It's like a breath of fresh air after a long eclipse, like a dusty veil being torn away when you realize you are not alone. The brothers now look at you not as someone weak, but as a person capable of changing the course of his destiny. When you took responsibility for your actions, something began to happen within you that is hard to describe in words. This inner strength fills every corner of your soul, and although your struggle is not over, it has already borne fruit. The recognition in the eyes of those around you indicates that they see not only a person in you, but also a leader capable of showing the way to the light. What if this is just the beginning? What if you've just opened the doors to a world where your ideas and solutions matter? Every moment, every collected effort is a step toward breaking free from the shackles of the past and becoming who you've always wanted to be. All that is required now is to keep moving forward with pride, knowing that the strength is already within you. What if I told you that each of us has a dark side? Everyone carries secrets within that are sometimes frightening to recall. One day, deep in the park where my friends and I often gathered, I noticed him. One of my old acquaintances, a man who once laughed long and hard at my failures. This was the same guy who never missed a chance to make a fool of me. I had grown accustomed to his jokes, but now he looked different than before. His confidence had vanished, and traces of pain and confusion were visible on his face. "Hello?" he said, as if searching for the slightest spark of friendship in our interaction. I didn't even know what to say. But his next sentence changed everything. "I need help," he said, and I sensed the vulnerability in his voice that he had never shown before. There was genuine distress in his words, as if he were exposing his wounds to an enemy. "I don't know how to change my life, and I realize I've been a fool at times. Could you give me advice?" In that moment I realized the world had turned upside down. The man who once ranked higher than me in our circle now knelt before me, asking for help. It wasn't just surreal, it was astonishing. His laughter no longer seemed like a weapon. It had turned into a whip that had evidently left its marks not only on me but on him as well. What happened to the smiling mocker? All his victories lost their edges when the pressure of real life began to weigh on him. I saw the frightening truth. Sometimes a unique success can hide vulnerability, and a cocktail of laughter can be bait for sorrow. "I'll try to help you," I said, and in that moment I felt our conversation becoming a true bridge to change. We both stood at the edge, each yearning for transformation. Maybe this conversation would mark the beginning of a new chapter, not just for him, but for me as well. What if you could stop time simply by introducing silence into your life, even for a moment? Imagine your mind freeing itself from the noise, worries, and constant stream of thoughts. Could this silence become the catalyst for the changes you've long dreamed of? What if the secret that has been forgotten for so long lies in this invisible state of peace? Many people live in a rush, chasing success and the fruits of their efforts, but few consider that true change begins within. We run, participating daily in the competition. Who is faster? Who is more successful? Who has more? But what if true strength lies not in movement, but in stillness? When we hear only our inner voice, are we finally able to understand what we truly want? Let's imagine for a moment that you are in the mountains, away from everything. Just you and nature. What is it like to not hear conversations, music, or distant cars? In that silence you may discover yourself. Perhaps it is here that you will find your true desires, dreams, and goals. Stop. Breathe. Isn't it amazing to realize that silence can create space for your best ideas and deeper connections with yourself and the world around you? What if I told you that each of us is capable of invisible transformation? Do you think it's impossible? Think about it. Every time you allow silence to enter your life, you give yourself a chance to change. Your perception, your attitude toward the world, everything can be rewritten. By listening to yourself, you can become the architect of your destiny. And right now, in this moment, you are on the brink of change. How can you harness your power? By answering the question about silence, you become the main part of your great journey. Are you ready to discover how one person can change the atmosphere of an entire community? Our monastery has recently been experiencing a special, entirely new energy. The whole team, as if after a long winter, has started to resemble a bright spring dawn. The gossip, which felt like dark clouds, is slowly disappearing, making way for light and warmth. Recently, one of us, through his sincerity and open heart, became the catalyst for this transformation. He simply couldn't go unnoticed. Every day he approached others, asked about their well-being, and provided support in difficult moments. At first, this seemed like a simple act of kindness, but soon it became evident that such kindness has a domino effect. His invisible threads have bound us into a whole. Who would have thought that a simple smile, genuine interest in another, and readiness to lend a helping hand could break down barriers? Gradually, our monastery became a place where support and unity replaced distrust. Everyone began to feel safe, as if under a warm blanket of love and care, and now the sayings that one man is not a warrior in the field have suddenly taken on new meaning. Each of us has become part of a team where every voice matters. Instead of conflicts and misunderstandings, discussions and collaborative solutions arise. The assurance that there is someone nearby who will support you instills hope and gives strength to move forward. This is truly an amazing transformation. Through the darkness of discontent, the warmth of mutual aid has shone through. Is it not surprising how one person can be a spark capable of igniting a fire of friendship and solidarity in an entire community? Now each of us knows, support is not just a phrase but a real force that changes hearts and lives. What if I told you that true influence does not depend on status and success? Everyone around may see your achievements, but only you know how much that success is worth and what price you paid for it. Life may offer many temptations to boast about your victories, but true strength lies in the ability to remain humble, even when everyone seems to be in awe of your results. On one of the most ordinary days, as I was leaving home, an acquaintance approached me. His eyes sparkled with admiration, and he enthusiastically spoke about how I inspire those around me, how my work changes lives. I listened to him, and at that moment I realized that behind this facade of fame lie simple principles, perseverance and kindness. I have always tried to help others, to support them in difficult times, and it is these little things that make me a true master of influence. It is so easy to succumb to the temptation to make a cult out of your achievements, to share every step toward success with the world. But what happens when you stay true to your principles, to your roots? When you don't forget that the main strength lies not in how much you have achieved, but in how sincerely you are willing to help others. This hero is not Superman, but an ordinary person. Every day he wakes up understanding that his success is not the result of a fleeting moment of fame, but of tangible and persistent work over many years. What he has created is not just a career. It is a community. It is hope. It is the light he passes on to those around him. And so, looking at my acquaintance, I couldn't help but smile. At that moment I understood. It is humility and the willingness to share your experience that truly makes influence powerful. And there is no secret to it, just sincerity and a desire to be of service. What will your influence look like if you also remain true to your beliefs? What if I told you that respect is not something to be earned through force, but the result of our integrity and loyalty to ourselves? We often live in a world where noise and aggression are presented as signs of strength. But in reality, true power lies in staying true to our principles, regardless of external circumstances. Imagine a person who, despite societal pressure, chooses not to fall into provocation. They refuse to participate in gossip and slander, remaining uncorrupted in their beliefs. What do you think happens to them? An atmosphere of respect begins to form around them. People, witnessing their resilience, start to gravitate towards them, and over time they become a thought leader. Even though they seemingly have no authority or means of manipulation, because they do not stray from their principles, they are respected not for their achievements but for their courage to be themselves. This may seem like a utopia, but don't you think that real strength is not power or manipulation, but the ability to be sincere and stand by your convictions even when it is difficult? How often do we lose ourselves in our desire to please others or conform to societal expectations? We live in an age where it is easy to get lost in the chaos of dogmas and opinions. We are whispered to that for success one must sacrifice their principles. But do you know the paradox? Only by following our inner aspirations can we truly influence society. Only loyalty to ourselves allows us to create genuine connections with people. It is important to understand that the influence we have on others is built not on fear or deceit, but on sincerity and respect. In this lies the true strength that cannot be taken away. By choosing honesty and kindness, you not only gain respect but also discover your true essence. Let us remember those who inspire us by their example, who despite difficulties remain true to themselves. Their story is a postcard to life, where the main rule is to stay true to oneself. This can change your life, inspiring you to follow your path. And only when we become whole can we influence society, leaving a legacy worthy of respect. What if within each of us lies an infinite resource for fighting or creating harmony? Imagine how your inner conflict can become a powerful engine that either destroys your dreams or leads to harmony with yourself and the surrounding world. How many times have you asked yourself, why is this so difficult? When faced with challenges, we choose either to argue with ourselves or to find a way to coexist peacefully with these difficulties. Let me tell you a story. A friend of mine spent many years searching for a successful business, facing failure time and again. He was angry, feeling like a victim of circumstances, and sank into endless conflicts, both with himself and others. But when he stopped and found the strength to accept the situation, his life changed. He discovered a path to harmony, cooperating with challenges instead of fighting against them. Only then did he feel the rise to the peaks of success. Over time, we all face choices, whether to continue battling against the storms of life or perhaps to learn to dance in the rain. Go through this journey of self-reflection. How do you typically respond to difficulties? What do you choose in your inner struggle? What if I told you that the path to harmony begins within? Think about it. The more we fight, the more our true essence perishes. What if harmony is not passivity, but the art of creating peace where it seems there is none? Only you decide which path of life to choose. What do you choose, struggle or harmony?